Hello everyone, welcome to the Redmen TV. It is the instant match reaction after Liverpool were knocked out of the FA Cup by a scoreline of 3-2 against Manchester United. Damn, that pains me to say. I'm joined by Ben Kelly for this one. Ben, let's do some positives first, because I think I was really pissed off at the end of the game, and I was really pissed off when I was doing the Red Mentions, and I was really pissed off midweek against Burnley as well. Having now had 10, 12 minutes to think about it, there are a few positives to take out of the game. You know, we scored a couple of goals. That was a nice thing. Liverpool scored a couple of goals, and Mo Salah got back in the goals and everything else, and that felt good, didn't it?
Yeah. I mean, for 10 minutes or so, you know, obviously, it's a while since we've lost to them, actually. So, you know, that's one of the reasons that it kind of hurts. But, you know, yeah, there were positives. We started the game really well. You know, in the first 10 minutes, we looked really good. You know, we had a lot of the ball, we were pinging it around. You know, very, very early on, there was a good opportunity sort of crafted. And then obviously we get the goal to show for it, and it's a really good Liverpool goal. It's Firmino doing what he does best. It's coming deep, getting the ball and playing those, you know, final cutting edge passes, if you like, for the other two. And obviously it's a really good finish from Mo Salah as well. You know, if there were fans, you know, in the ground today, you know, what a let of that would have been.
Would he have celebrated?
I don't know. It was funny that actually, possibly, probably. I mean, I don't know if that's just a consequence of maybe the recent run of form. You know, the no celebrating. Maybe they feel, you know, at the moment that, like, you know, they're not quite themselves, and they need to earn the right to celebrate. You know, maybe that's something, an internal agreement in the squad or something like that. I did think that was a bit funny. I did notice that. Yeah, but you know, as I say,
does it worry you, Ben? Because there's been a lot of talk, isn't there, about Real Madrid and Salah and all that type of stuff, and he's fueling the flames, yeah, if
maybe,
nothing else.
Maybe. I think it's funny at the moment. Personally, I think right now it's more down to just the fact that we've been in crap form, and there's been a few crap performances, and you know, nobody's particularly happy about it. And as I say, you know, you want to get back to winning ways really before you go 1-0 up at Old Trafford. It's a good thing, but you know, ultimately it means nothing at that stage in the game, you know, as the result shows. So I think right now there's like, it's getting harder week by week to not read into these things on that level. But like I'd say at the moment, I think still the severity of the situation, I think not having fans there does make a difference. But I wouldn't necessarily be too worried about that kind of thing just yet, personally. But there'll undoubtedly be some people who are.
Yeah, no, I think they will be, and look, some of Liverpool's build-up play was really, really good, and I felt like, for me, the positives were Salah getting back on the score sheet, Liverpool getting back on the score sheet. Never mind Salah, to be fair, like it's been that long since we've stuck one in the back of the net, hasn't it? So, but that's probably it. To be honest with you, I think Trent had a bit of an up and down game again. Andy Robertson doesn't look like Andy Robertson when he doesn't have Sadio Mane in front of him. I think that's fair to say. I think we all know how good they are. I don't think Thiago had the best game today. I think you can probably point a finger at Thiago for the third goal. Obviously, I think Cavani goes down a bit easy, but he buys it. Fair play. Does what he needs to do. I think he's already going down, but Fabinho does touch him, so it's probably a free kick. And then, you know, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's come out and said he did 30 minutes. Bruno Fernandes extra training. Yippee fucking Kai, thanks, you bellend. Didn't really need to hear that, but it wasn't for us, was it? In fact, it was absolutely not for us.
No,
it was for Manchester United fans.
That's the consequence of me following Simon Stone on Twitter. That.
Yeah, so but it is what it is. And look, I think we do have to do the negatives of the game, and excuse me, the big negative, as it probably should be on his performance, is Reece Williams wasn't good enough, and this isn't something that's new to us. I think we probably knew that relying on a 19-year-old away at Old Trafford in an FA Cup tie wasn't going to be plain sailing.
No, and this isn't his fault. It's, you know, this is part of a wider problem, and a problem that it feels week by week is becoming. He
shouldn't get the blame.
No, absolutely not.
Being part
and unfortunately, he will because of the culture of modern football these days. And this is what winds me up: is that whether we think or not, Reece Williams will get abused on Twitter tonight. There'll be fans out there, idiots, who will go out and target Reece Williams for this. This is part of a wider issue at Liverpool, and Reece Williams has been caught up in the middle of it through no fault of his own. Reece Williams shouldn't have been on the pitch today, right? This comes down to the fact it goes all the way back to the summer, where Liverpool let go of Dejan Lovren and they didn't replace him. Now, at the time, it was a bit of a dodgy decision, but obviously you can't account for losing both centre-backs, to these injuries. So I accept that at the time you were taking a risk, and by the same token that it's not come off, it might well have all been fine. We might have had Van Dijk and Gomez available today. But for me, you're looking at the situation in the summer. You've got those two. Van Dijk was pretty reliable. Joe Gomez was on and off. But with the fitness issues of Matip, you need another one. We didn't go for another one. It's backfired. This over the last few weeks, it's an issue that's just grown and grown. And obviously with Klopp's comments that he made on Friday prior to this game in the press conference, it's for the first time I'm feeling a little bit more of an unrest behind the scenes, and people will throw the pandemic at me, and people might throw the availability of options out there. But for me, Klopp's got somebody in mind. If he's asked for a centre-back, if he's asked for funds for a centre-back, for me that says that Jurgen Klopp thinks that there's somebody available for him that he can go and buy now. And I think, whereas before, even at the beginning of this month, I was very much in the mind frame of, well, we can't just sign anyone. Like, I know we need a centre-back, but we can't just sign anyone. Right now, I'm starting to get a little bit tired of this. Liverpool need to we've got a week to go and sign a centre-back. Liverpool need to go and sign a centre-back, because all that's going to happen is that players like Reece Williams are going to be kept being thrown into the firing line. And this is going to be really difficult for his confidence. And again, it's not his fault. But if you go out, it doesn't matter whether you know that you should be playing on that pitch today or not. But if you're Reece Williams and you go out away at Old Trafford, big game, you're coming up with we talked about it on the pre-game show about the quality of a player like Edison Cavani. Now, no, it wasn't necessarily directly Cavani that caused Williams' problems today. I thought it was more the pace of Rashford. But when you come away from a big game like that as a young kid, and you know that you've messed up, and you know that you've cost your team a goal, and you know that it's not the first time. A couple of weeks ago we had the same problem at Villa. You've got to wonder what this is starting to do for its development. Now, this obviously, again, and I'm sorry to be talking for a little while here, but I don't necessarily think that the problem with the owners is black or white. I think I can appreciate the things that FSG have done for Liverpool, and I'm never going to use that hashtag on Twitter, and I'm never going to publicly come out and really slant the owners and say some of the things that I've seen about the owners over the last few days. But I do think at the moment that there's a frustration with Klopp towards the owners, and I think it's justified. And I think as I say, I can appreciate the good things that the owners have done, but I can criticise right now that I think the owners need to be doing more. We've got a real asset in Jurgen Klopp at the moment, and they need to back him. All the things that Jurgen Klopp's done for us over the last few years, they need to come out and back the manager, because if we lose him, and I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but if we lose him, then we'll be looking back at it and going, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I must admit, I feel very similarly to you. And the one disagreement I do have, and not having a go here or anything, we're all entitled to our opinions, is I don't feel that unrest in the same way that you feel. And I said this on the watch along, and apologies for anyone who's watched that, but I think it's worth repeating, because a lot of people just come to this show rather than watch the watch along. I didn't hear what you said either, so I was along the lines of, I appreciate everything that FSG have done for Liverpool, and FSG with Jurgen Klopp. Jurgen Klopp is like 90% why Liverpool are where they are, but that other 10% is the team, and more than that, the team's a bigger part. Let's take the back.
Part of it is behind the scenes,
behind the scenes people, and the Michael Edwards and FSG and everything else that they've done. That's all part and parcel. And FSG signed Jurgen Klopp in the first place. FSG have signed the players, gone out there, bought the players for him. Jurgen didn't want Mo Salah, apparently. Remember that? And he gets Mo Salah because of the committee that they put together. So, and I'm not ready to write FSG off as owners, but I am in exactly the same position with you, where I'm like, don't piss a season away. Don't piss a season. And I'm not saying like the season's going to be gone, but an opportunity to win the Premier League doesn't come around every year. So go out there and sign a centre-half if you're truly serious. And I don't care really whether, and the pandemic thing, and I get all that, and the money, and I know exactly what gross sales Liverpool are going to be missing out on is close to 200 million. Get a fucking loan. Because I'm not asked. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean?
Money,
just get a load, get a centre half in, because they've only got a short window, this team, to go and sign somebody and to go and win the Premier League. We might have 4 years where this team can win the Premier League, and you might have just pissed one of them away.
The money must be there in some shape or form. I'm not having it. FSG are an international multi-million-pound conglomerate company that have companies in America and they've got the club in England. There must be a way of finding the money. What upsets me right now is the fact, and for me, the unrest that I was talking about before, the comments that were posted in writing on Friday night, I don't think quite had the same sort of menace behind them as when you watch the clip of Klopp talking in the press conference.
Absolutely.
But what I do feel is this is the first time that Klopp has, and I know he was asked the question, but when it comes to these matters for me, in looking at what how Klopp has dealt with these matters previously, when it comes down to transfers and contracts and conversations between him and the board, it's always, he shuts it down. It's always, we don't talk about these things. These things, this is something we don't talk about. Like, that's a phrase he loves to use. When he was asked about that question on Friday, he did take time to come out and talk about how, he admitted that he'd asked for a centre-back. He admitted that he's not going to cry because he's not getting what he wants. And while I think that, again, the way that he said that wasn't necessarily how it was portrayed later on, I feel like previously he'd have just gone, look, what's said between me and the board, or what I asked for in terms of transfers, we don't speak about that to the press. And I feel as if there's been a slight shift in how Klopp has talked about these matters over the last few weeks. I brought this up after the Villa game that we talked about, and we did the final word late on the Friday night. There was another just throwaway comment that, like, maybe at the time I felt like I was reading a bit too much into it, but again, like, in context and sort of building these things up, I think there's been a slight shift in how Klopp is talking about these things in front of the press, personally.
There could be. There very well could be, but I watched the one in the daytime, the press conference in the daytime. I've obviously read the quotes and stuff like that, but he was he was laughing about it. Like, he genuinely couldn't believe that people didn't understand that he didn't sign the checks. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? So, and I do get that there may have been a change in tact in how he deals with it, or maybe he's just been asked the question 3 times and he's already elaborated on it once and he's elaborating on further. So maybe that's just it, because at the end of the day, he's quite a truthful human being as well. He doesn't really play his cards close to his chest a lot of time, and when everything's going good, no one's asking those questions. So why would he freely admit that he's trying to sign someone when we're the top of the Premier League and we're winning European Cups? The questions aren't the same. So yeah. I find it difficult to say, well, actually, is there a change in tact because things have been going so well for so long that those questions weren't getting asked of him? So I find it difficult to know how he would have answered those questions in the past.
I mean, previously we've seen him say that he thinks he's got 2 of the best centre-backs in the league in Saka and Lovren because he's being asked about Van Dijk. So he's covering and he's trying to do all that.
Maybe it is just putting a little bit of pressure on the board, and there is no.
And I hope that it is
malice there or something.
And hopefully it's not got to that stage yet. But I do think that action needs to be taken at this point, but I think the problem is, the overriding problem is that when it comes to the FSG conversation, I feel like we're here having a relatively level-headed debate about it, but when you go out and you read people's thoughts on FSG, it's like 2 ends of a very, very large spectrum. You either have to be FSG out and slandering the FSG and slandering the owners and really against them, and if you're not this, you're all the way over on the other side where you're a top red and you're defending them and you're dying on the hill of FSG.
But that's the problem with modern society.
Yeah.
There is no conversation and no debate online because you've got 280 characters to do it in.
I'm not FSG out. I'm just very much in the interest of getting a centre-back in, and I can criticise them for that. That's all I am. Just because you're not in one place when it comes to the owners doesn't mean that you're on the complete opposite way of it, and I think that's the problem. There aren't enough level-headed conversations being had about the need that FSG have been quite good owners for Liverpool over a long period of time, and they've proven that right now they need to be the owners that we've seen and just pull the trigger and buy a centre-back.
Completely agree. Rabadam sent us 20 Norwegian krona, just signed Koulibaly already. A bit old, but great. I mean, I'm all in on buying a Koulibaly. It's not going to happen though, is it? That's the problem.
Not right now, it's not. No. And this is the thing, so this is the other perspective.
But Ben, can I just ask a question? Because look, we know where each other stand on this. Very similar point of view, differ on one. Doesn't matter. Each entitled to our opinions. Not going to try and change yours. Won't be able to anyway. But when we didn't sign Virgil van Dijk, when we sold Coutinho, I remember saying at the time it was negligent of the owners not to sign a replacement for Felipe Coutinho and all that type of stuff. And then we go on and we buy Virgil van Dijk quite a long time later. Or did we just...
No, it was
we
the
signed
same
Van
window.
Dijk before him.
Window,
Sorry,
yeah.
We signed Van Dijk before him. We got Coutinho
But we wanted Van Dijk in the summer.
But we wanted him in the summer. Sorry. But what we didn't realise until we signed Virgil van Dijk is Jurgen was willing to wait for the right person. Do you think that the situation as Liverpool right now has got so bad that Jurgen has now moved away from the long-term plan and is back to, we need a short-term plan and we need a centre-half? Or do you think if he has the option of buying the man that he absolutely 100% wants in the summer, he'll wait for him?
This is what I sort of meant before. I think there's been a shift over the last couple of weeks in terms of exactly that. I think Jurgen now, in the sense that he's coming out and saying he's asked for a centre-back, I think that for me, that means that there's somebody out there, whether it's a short-term or long-term solution, there's somebody out there right now that he wants and he thinks might be able to help solve this current problem, and he's being denied that now. Again, maybe there's people like Mike Gordon and Michael Edwards who are going, no, we need to stick with the plan. For all we know, they might be looking at Koulibaly or Upamecano in the summer. It's not possible right now. I appreciate it's not possible right now, but we might be about to spunk £70 million on one of them in the summer, and they're talking to Jurgen and saying, no, we want to stick to this plan. We want to stick to plan A, and that's maybe where the debate's coming in, behind the scenes.
And that's probably right, because I can imagine it whereby, to get a centre half in now, like, look, anyone who's a Premier League centre half would do for me.
Yeah.
Anyone who's not a 19-year-old kid who's got experience in the league would do for me. But if it hinders the budgets later down the line, that's what Liverpool is. That's the thing, though. We're fans. We don't get to see the inner workings. We get to stand here and type on Twitter and say what we want to say, because we've all got a platform. Everybody's got a platform to be able to do that now. But what we don't have is the facts of the matter. And the older I've got, the more I've appreciated. It's very hard to be all the way over here or all the way over here when you are shrouded in grey, a grey area, because we don't see the inner workings of the football club. That's why I find it so difficult. That's why I'm always like left of centre, as it were, or I'm not.
That's how it feels, doesn't it?
But that's right, because how can you possibly, if you are a level-headed person, make yourself a decision and put a fucking flag in the ground when you don't know the inner workings of the football club? And everyone's in the same boat there, and we all look at it slightly differently. And people will be sat there going FSG out. Fair play, they might be right. They really might be right. Maybe we do need better owners, with deeper pockets than FSG. I don't know. What I do know is that we've won the European Cup, we're world champions, and we won the Premier League in the last couple of years. That's what I know. And for 30 years prior to that, we didn't win the fucking Premier League. So they've got a little bit of credit in the bank for me. I really want them to sign a centre-half, and I do think it's probably going to be negligent if they don't sign a centre-half, but I've been proven wrong before, and we've all been proven wrong when it comes to football, and maybe we should all probably respect each other's opinions a little bit more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just think right now, based on what you said at the beginning of the show, even if there is a long-term plan for a centre-back in the summer, as you said, I think, and I agree with you right now, that not signing a centre-back over the next week means that we piss away this season. I'm going to be open enough to say I don't think we're going to win this. I don't think we're going to win the league or the Champions League if we don't sign another centre-back this season.
And that's because Reece Williams and Nat Phillips aren't of the level that's needed to win those, no matter how many world-class players are on the team. And
even, and again, even if the league might be a little bit more simple, we might be able to bridge the gap a little bit more in the, you get a couple of fluky wins, and all that. But when it comes to the Champions League in particular, and you get to the latter stage of the Champions League, and you're playing your Real Madrids, and right now your Manchester Cities, and all these top sides around Europe, Reece Williams, it just isn't the level. Just isn't the level.
Yet. Might never get there. Good prospect.
But he's being rushed into it right now because of the situation that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, he is. Let's get back onto the game then. Tell you one of the things that... Oh, thank you so much for the super chat, Liam Cox. And actually, we've just got a new member, Meaty Goodness. Thank you for joining as a club captain, Meaty Goodness. One of the things that I found really frustrating about the game, and I think it's something that Liverpool need to get a handle on really quickly, is that space behind Trent, because we're not getting the attacking outlet that is Trent Alexander-Arnold when he's firing on all cylinders. The game's nearly not there at the moment. It's just clearly not there. But we can't leave ourselves so open and make it so easy for Manchester United to get in behind, because throughout the entire 94 minutes, 95 if you include the first minute of extra time in the first half, that ball was on. How how have we gone through a 95 in a game of football, leaving that ball on all the time?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I mean, it's something that I think, you've got... I think it was adjusted at half-time, but I think it's muscle memory, isn't it? For the fullbacks, you want it. They like to get up. They like to push forward.
Scream at them.
Well, exactly, and I think that's it. And I think particularly in that first half, say we had the best of it really until we scored. But then there was a couple of chances, where exactly that ball was played, and it was always going to happen because, again, obviously we discussed the centre backs, but they were always going to target Reece Williams today, and the pace of Rashford, that's always going to be what he was looking to do. And I would have just liked a little bit more maturity from Trent, really, to kind of recognise that himself. You know what I mean? And that maybe that's something that's, on the whole, I mean, we know that Trent hasn't been in great form over the last few weeks, but on the whole of Trent's game at the moment, you're going to remind ourselves that he's very young. Maybe that's just what he's missing at the moment. Because I think if James Milner's playing right back there, he spots that and goes, well, you know what? Okay, James Milner isn't going to get as high anyway to begin with, but James Milner goes, oh, you know what? I'll just plug that gap a little bit more often. That's the kind of thing that James Milner or Jordan Henderson does. And maybe that's something we're missing from Henderson today because, we know that when Trent likes to bomb on, that then becomes Jordan Henderson's space, just to cover that gap. He doesn't necessarily come in and play right back, but he puts himself, he does two jobs. He comes in and he might plant himself square on and he can see the situation happening behind him and he can see the situation happening in midfield. That's what Jordan Henderson does very well, and he's got the engine to do it for 90 minutes. Not necessarily something that Thiago is going to do. Not necessarily something that Gini Wijnaldum's going to do. Milner will do it, but that's something that we miss, I think, from Jordan Henderson not playing at all. Never mind, just playing at centre back.
We had a super chat from James Lim. Thank you very much for the £2 super chat. Really appreciate that. I want to talk about James Milner a little bit because I thought he had a decent game. To be honest with you, I thought he probably did provide that leadership that we wanted him in the midfield for. But not only that, him and Gini Wijnaldum at times getting back onto some of the positives. They did attack and they did get into the penalty. And Milner had a couple of ones from inside the area where he could have scored. He had that volley, doesn't he?
There's one at 2-1 just before the goal as well. Yeah.
What did you think of his performance then?
I thought it was good. I thought he just does the basics really well, and that's something that. I think, is he 36 now or he's coming up to 36?
Next year, 36.
So he's not going to be around forever. And it's something that we're really going to miss when he's gone. The ability to put James, we've got somebody in there who can come in, and he's played every single type of game there is to play. He's played at the top level for, he's played in Champions League finals. He's played in top, title races. He's played at the top level for England. Like, he's done all of these games. He's played in FA Cup finals for lots of different clubs. He's played in the Manchester derby. He's played in the Newcastle Sunderland derby. He's played in the Birmingham derby. And therefore, you've got a player there who you can just drop in a game like today, and it's not a problem. You barely bat an eyelid, and that's because he just, as I say, just does the basics really, really well. And yeah, on top of that, you do get the odd little bit of creativity from him as well. And in a game like today, unfortunately, at the moment, over the last few years for Liverpool as well, he's been wasted a little bit because he's had to plug the gap of left back and right back. But, when he comes in and he puts in a really good midfield performance like you do today, you realise what you miss a little bit for, when you have to put him in those areas. I still think he's a really good option. And I think, now we're out the FA Cup, there might be less opportunities for him to feature this season because, I do think that when Henderson's fit and if we get a centre-back in and when Wijnaldum and Thiago and, Fabinho, I think there's many players above him in the pecking order in midfield. Keita's another one. But, it just goes to show that when he is on the team sheet, we're not losing anything. No,
you're absolutely right. And let's talk about one more thing then before we wrap this one up then. I think we were both discussing actually prior to the show. I think, Manchester United's subs had a positive impact and maybe Liverpool's didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bruno Fernandes, he is world class, isn't he?
Yeah.
And that's something that we have to swallow. He comes on. I actually called it. I said it to myself. This is going in. This, and it goes in. Maybe Alisson could have done a little bit better.
Maybe Thiago could have done better.
Yeah, but it's hit hard and low, and it's a good strike.
I think Alisson thinks there that he's got to go over the wall, and it's that.
But for me,
half a second of indecision, and Thiago should have
potentially.
Been ahead of it.
But for me, I'm no world class footballer, but if I'm got a situation, I know you've played 5-a-side with me. in that situation, if I'm taking that free kick, it's very, very difficult to put that over the wall from that close. And as a world-class goalkeeper like Alisson, if I had to hedge my bets,
Trust your wall.
Trust your wall, but I'd be anticipating him going that way.
If you trust your wall, but if you trust your wall and it goes in, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
If it goes in your side, but it's arguably your fault. And I think Thiago probably could have done better. We've had a super chat from DBX. Why didn't Robbo get forward more? Was less than usual. I agree with that. And Ray J, Thiago not a 6, no back 4 cover. Let's get on to the Robbo one first and foremost then, because for me, Robbo was getting forwards first half. But Robbo's not Robbo without Mane. I just don't think it works quite the same. I think Kurt Jones was a little bit sort of hung out to dry there, to be honest with you, today. I think we didn't see loads of him from the left wing position. I think he was a little bit better, but when everyone's legs fell off, when he's moved sort of more central and Mane comes on and stuff, and yeah, a little bit of a tough outing for Robbo today, and Ray J's Thiago's not a 6, no back 4 cover. I don't think Thiago's the 6 that we need right now. I think we need Fabinho as the 6 right now, and obviously we're not able to do that in any way, shape or form, but I think we need a bit more of a destroyer, to be honest with you. I think Thiago's good. I don't think he had his best game for us. I think maybe one of his weakest games, actually. I think it was a little bit overrun at times, probably didn't provide the cover that was necessary going against Manchester United. I understand why he's played there, because you want to get the ball moving quickly, but my problem at the moment is the movement in front of Thiago. If there's no one free, then who's he pass it to? And again, we became a little bit one-dimensional at times throughout the game, didn't we? And, very slow build-up, boring at times to get it out wide. And that was the problem. Ross mentioned it. I thought it was a great point during the comms. When it was last 10 minutes and we were really sort of trying to push on for a goal, we sort of reverted to type of whipping loads of balls into the box for Man United to clear, and that's a little bit disheartening.
Yeah, it's really difficult, isn't it? Because that's not where we want Thiago to be playing. It's probably not where Thiago wants to be playing, and I don't know it. And again, it feeds into the same sense of that situation in terms of is it worth giving? If Matip's going to be fit for a little bit, is it worth, now having Fabinho back in midfield
who's Matip playing with?
And playing with Nat Phillips, trying that out? I don't know. I've not seen a horrendously bad performance from Nat Phillips, to be honest. But the fact that, Reece Williams goes and does what he does against Aston Villa and is still trusted today maybe speaks a little bit about what Klopp's seen in training. Anyway, we've talked about the centre-backs. In terms of Thiago, yeah, I agree. What I found interesting, because I agree he was overrun, is, and there may be something there for the stats show that I'm going to do tomorrow from Man United's perspective, because Thiago ran the show last week at Anfield and he played very, very well. And something, Ollie made a tactical tweak or something today.
They ignored the midfield.
What?
They ignored the midfield.
Well, yeah. In what way?
Whenever McTominay or Pogba got it deep, they just went thump over the top of it.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. So what?
No messing around. Dead quick before anyone can press you. Vumph. Straight up. That's what annoyed me about the 10 thing. They just ignored the midfield. They went down the sides. They went over the top.
But I mean, also when Thiago did have the ball, he didn't seem to have the freedom like he did last week to be picking the passes, and maybe that does come down to the movement ahead of him, and maybe that does come down to the fact that Jones doesn't move as much as Mane or whatever. I agree. There's been no evidence so far to suggest that Curtis Jones is a winger. For me, he's so much better in midfield. But I think it comes down to the fact that he wanted Milner to play. And then, between Wijnaldum and Thiago, it's probably a coin toss as to, if he wants Thiago to play in the 6, maybe you could have played Jones in the middle instead of Wijnaldum. But if he wants to rest Mane, and he doesn't want to play Shaqiri, you know what I mean? So there's all these questions. I think
Jurgen's fallen foul here of trying to win the game against Burnley and the game against Manchester United. Yeah. And what I mean by that is he's kind of picked, let's say your best side's 100%. He's kind of gone 85%, 85% instead of 100%, 50% for the Burnley game. And then the thing, he's hedged his bets and tried to win both games. And Mane coming out had a bigger impact than I think he probably felt.
And that's all well and good if you just sneak the 1-0 win against Burnley in it, really. You know what I mean? And that's what it comes. It's those fine margins. Yeah. And that's what it comes down to. I'm getting sick of losing football matches.
Could this be a blessing in disguise, Ben Kelly?
Potentially. I saw your note on that and I had a little look. Obviously, the 5th round would have been between Leicester and Manchester City. They're 2 tough games, and it's not far away. So and you've got Leipzig knocking around at that point as well. So potentially. I don't really understand. I don't know why. Maybe somebody else. It's probably COVID related, but the 5th round a whole month earlier than it was last season this year. Don't really know why that is.
I think that's all to do with all the competitions and it being truncated and everything else.
So that was quite interesting when I looked at that, because like the Chelsea game last season was one of the last games that went ahead. So I know that was a lot later.
I think it's also the late Premier League start and everything else and all that type of stuff, isn't it?
So yeah, and probably the Euros as well. That's probably got something to do with it. So yeah, that is something potentially. But as I said on the show that before the game, I'd quite like to have won the FA Cup. Imagine it's not happening now, but imagine we get towards the end of the season and we might have had if fans are starting to get back into the grounds, a few even a select few of us might have been able to have a day out of Wembley to go. If it wasn't something that if the league was starting to drop off, as you rightly say, I don't think we should completely rule out the league yet. But it would have been. I think it would have been nice to have something cooking on the back burner just in case. Obviously, it's not going to happen, and that's one of those things. But I would have liked to progress today, obviously, but we've not. We've got to look at what's coming up now in the future.
Jesse Evans, 199 Super Chat. Socrates on a free, got experience at least. I said I just want to sign a Premier League class centre back. I don't think he is.
No,
quite honestly.
If he can't get into Arsenal's side at the moment.
And if I think he's slower than Reece and Nat, and I think that really does hinder us. I could be proved wrong if we were to go and sign him. Maybe he's got that experience that his reading of the game could cover it, but there's a reason that Arsenal have let him go, I think. So for me, it's probably a no. But hopefully I'll be stand corrected. Maybe he could come in and maybe he could do a job. I don't know. Anyway, that has been the Instant Match Reaction. I'm Chris Pajak. That's Ben Kelly. Thank you from us. Thank you for watching all of today's comments. I'd like to tell you that it's going to get better. I feel that it's going to get better, but that's not based on absolutely anything. So enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll see you next time. Ta-ra.